Welcome to South Florida saltwater fishing. I'm Heath, and it's time to get into the bite. Wahoo in the boat, baby!
That kingfish right there. Oh, there we go. I mean, you talk about epic fishing days. Yeah! Nice bull dolphin right there. Double header! Woohoo! Look at that muddle snapper!
Alright folks, in this episode we're going to go over how to pass the U.S. Coast Guard vessel safety check. Before we get into this though, if you want to learn more about fishing, grow as an angler, just see some great and exciting offshore fishing adventures, you can start by hitting the subscribe button. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you won't miss a thing. Alright folks, so like I said, we're going over what you're going to need to pass the U.S. Coast Guard vessel safety check. Now whether you're on the water, at a boat ramp, at a marina, the U.S. Coast Guard has the right to inspect your boat and make sure that it's safe. And what they're trying to do with these safety checks is they're trying to avoid having to inadvertently come and bail you out. So when I was pulling my boat out of a ramp a few weeks back, a gentleman approached me from the Coast Guard and he asked if he could do an inspection. And of course I said yes. So this is why I'm going over these important facts to help you out, to make sure that you've got all the stuff should they ask for an inspection. And they've got a checklist and it's very simple, it's very concise. And if you play ball and you go along and you're agreeable, they're not gonna give you a hard time. All right, so we're not gonna waste much more time. We're gonna get right into what you need to pass this vessel safety check. Okay, so the first thing they're going to ask you for when they start this inspection is some form of ID. More than likely, your driver's license. The next thing they'll be asking you for is the registration for your vessel. Make sure you have it with you. Okay, and so now as they're taking your initial documentation, your ID and your boat registration, they're also going to check for one thing to match up, which is your boat numbers, which are right here. Here's your registration tag. First thing first is your registration can't be expired. Next thing is this number here on your boat has to match the number on your registration. Any discrepancies is going to cause a problem, and from there they'll tell you, hey, you've got to correct this, and they'll write you some sort of warning and you go with it from there, getting it corrected. All right, and so after they get those few bits of information from you and they log the data that they need to on their checklist sheet, they're going to start asking for the specific items that are on the safety checklist. They're going to ask if your boat has a horn. If not, you're going to have a little canister like blowhorn like this. They're also going to ask if you have flares. You have to have a package of flares like this. Mine are lights, so they don't really expire. If you've got flares that strike and light a flare or shoot off a flare, you've got to make sure that they're not expired. Okay, and so the next thing they're going to ask for is, do you have a fire extinguisher? On my boat, I happen to have two of them. And they are right in here. And what you'll want to do is make sure that it's not rusty and old looking like this one is, which is why I have a second one that's in better condition, because they might say, hey, you need to replace that. There really is no expiration date on these, but they can tell if it's full or not. So, you know, just something to think about. You need a fire extinguisher. And now one of the few things that's on their checklist that you might not think they're going to ask you about is they're going to ask you, do you have a bilge pump? And then they're going to ask you if it's functioning, and they may ask you to prove it too. So just be aware of that. And so along with them identifying that your boat has a bilge pump, they're going to want to see some sort of backup dewatering device. It can be a bucket, it can be a hand pump, anything like that, but they are going to ask for that too. All right, now another thing they're going to want you to have on your boat is some sort of marine radio, some sort of communication. Now mine doesn't have one that is mounted inside the console, so I carry a portable one. Here is my marine radio, and they also might say they want to check it to make sure that it's functioning, it's got power, and it's picking up a good signal. And another item on their checklist is your boat gas powered? So if it's gas powered, you know, they're going to check for your fuel tank, where you put it, and then they're also going to check that you have what is called ventilation, which is right here. This is a vent cap That lets the gasoline in your boat breathe. It's also an overflow cap, and it lets you know when your boat's full, when you're filling it up, and prevents you from making, a huge disastrous mess with fuel as you're filling your boat up. And then the last couple of items that they're going to ask you for, that you have to have readily available, they're going to ask you if you have life jackets. So like I said, they can't be buried somewhere, and you've got to have them. And they can't be expired either. They can't be waterlogged or anything like that. So, every couple of years you might want to consider buying new ones. West Marine, they sell a 3-pack like this. It comes in a sort of, a little dry bag, good to go. And after that, they're going to ask you, do you have a floating cushion, which is also a mandatory requirement. You got to have a throw cushion in case someone goes over, you pitch it out to them. It's what they need. And now a couple more things you can have on your boat just to show them for good safety measures so they kind of don't go digging any deeper than they need to. You can present to them a first aid kit. Mine is fairly well stacked because I do a lot of fishing and I've had some accidents happen, and you got to be able to handle them when you're out on the water. First aid kit. Show it to them if you got it. And then the last thing that you might want to show them is a 360 light. Mine is removable. Some boats, it's a hard mounted one that's, part of the boat. So just think about that. Another reason for them to not dig any deeper is showing them that you have all of these safety components to make a trip out onto the water safe for you and whoever you take out, so that they won't have to come and get you. And so along with having that 360 light on your boat, they're also going to check that you have navigational lights, which are right here. And again, they might ask you for a functionality test. They might not. All depends upon how it's going, how their day is going. If anybody at the ramp or marina is giving them a hard time and you're just happen to fall victim to them, regardless, these things should be working anyway. And the last and one of the most important things that they're going to look at when they're inspecting your vessel is your deck kept in order. Is it free of tripping hazards or anything like that? If your deck is a hot mess, they will more than likely tell you, hey, get your act together, you got to clean this up, this is not acceptable. And so those are pretty much the basic components that you need to have in order to pass the U.S. Coast Guard vessel safety check. And when you're done and you've passed the vessel inspection, they're going to have you sign, and they're going to give you a copy of the checklist that shows your vessel was checked by a U.S. Coast Guard approved vessel examiner. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this checklist with you real quick to show you what it was that I was talking about. Okay, so here's the vessel safety check. My information, my boat number, hull identification number, and some formalities, the length, how it's powered, and all this other stuff. Here is the checklist. Here's the main part that we're going to be looking at. Display of your numbers, registration, floating devices, distress signals, fire extinguisher, navigation lights, a few things that are not applicable. This is what I was talking about at the end, the vessel condition, your deck free of hazards, the fuel system, a heating system, which doesn't apply because I don't have a cabin, the marine radio, backup dewatering device, like I said, a bucket or something. And then down here is all the formalities and signatures, the examiner's number, your signature, and after that, you're good to go. All right, and now one other thing they're going to give you once you pass the vessel safety check is they're going to give you a decal that looks like this right here. And it's going to be best if you put it by your numbers and your registration. That way, if they approach your boat, they just look at it real quick and they go, okay, hey, this guy's already passed his check. He's good to go. Let's pass him by and move on. All right, folks, that about does it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed, hope you had fun, and I hope you learned a little bit about what it takes to pass the U.S. Coast Guard vessel safety check. Till next time, South Florida saltwater fishing, going wherever the cool wind takes us.